What's going on, everybody? So my name is Mark Audet. I'm a graduate student here at East Stroudsburg University with a concentration in exercise science. Today we're going to be going over the Bulgarian Split Squat, also referred to as the rear foot elevated split squat, and the different progressions that you can use along with that movement to transfer over to sport performance and athletic ability. First off, I just want to introduce who we're going to be using today. So Jordan, come on over here. So this is the athlete that's going to be helping me out today. This is Jordan Walters. Right now he's a kicker for the East Stroudsburg University football team. Now, as far as his training background, when everyone hears kicker in that position, they kind of downplay physical abilities, but that's not the case here with Jordan. Jordan's actually served in the military. He's done 3.5 years active Army duty. He's done a year in the National Guard. He actually has done one tour for us over in Iraq for 9 months. And during that time, he was a sergeant while he was getting it going. So we're not going to get any lack of ability displayed here today by using a kicker. I kind of want to go over why I picked the Bulgarian Split Squat and kind of why and how it's such a dynamic movement. The first thing to understand is that when you're doing a split squat or Bulgarian split squat, whatever you want to call it, it's a unilateral movement, aka single leg. And the best reason for using a single leg movement is something called the bilateral deficit. And what that means is that your ability to produce force on both your legs is less than producing the force on one leg and one leg added together. So you're actually stronger on both your legs separately added together than you are on two of your legs at one time. So as well as that, training on one leg is more specific to what actually happens in team sports, because when you run, you're on one leg. Most of the time when you jump, you're on one leg. You spend a high majority of your time on one leg. So neglecting that type of training, that resistance type training in the weight room, is just something that you could be missing out on. The second reason is you can make this movement very sport specific biomechanically. So we're going to go over two very biomechanical techniques that can actually relate specifically to what happens in different movements within team sports and kind of just general strength base. We're going to go over kind of the basic progression that I use in a way to help athletes develop this movement. So we're going to come over here. So the first one we're going to go over is the general strength movement. So what's going to happen is Jordan's going to find kind of his range away from the box that's going to be comfortable to the point where his knee is not over his toe. It is a vertical, parallel, or perpendicular shin angle. So he's going to shift his weight onto the foot that's standing up, and he's going to place his other one back. And now, when Jordan goes down fully into the movement, so go down, as we can see here, now his knee has traveled over his toe. So this is actually not the general movement. Come back up. So what we need to do is he actually needs to shift his foot forward and now place his leg back. So what this will do is when he comes down, now we have that perpendicular shin angle. And what this does is it makes the movement targeted towards your posterior chain. So come on up. So early on, in a phase or in a training cycle, you would implement the general strength, and that's what we'll refer to as the general strength technique. How we're going to progress that by intensity-wise is you can either do eccentrics or isometrics within body weight. So what that means is, let's get into that general strength stance. So with the foot forward, shifting your weight, stepping back. Now, an eccentric means we're focusing on the down version, the stretching part of the movement. So what I'm going to say is you're going to do 2 reps with a 5-second tempo. So we would go down, 1, 2, 3, come up again. I'm going to go a little bit slower. So down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, come up. That's an eccentric. You put your foot down. What that does is it helps you develop the ability for force absorption. And every movement in sport, whether it's a jump or a sprint, requires that section of the movement. When you place your foot down, the first thing you have to do is absorb the force that the ground puts in against you, and this is where that helps. The second progression is isometric. So what that means is we're going to put the foot up, and what's going to happen is Jordan's going to go down at a normal pace, and he's going to pause in the bottom. So you're going to go down, and he's going to hold right there. Now what that does is that helps the second part of every move. So when I put my foot down, when I'm cutting, sprinting, running, after I absorb the force, there's a point where I have to stop. And that brief section, the isometric phase, is where this helps so that I can get out of that movement into the concentric phase. So that's the eccentrics and the isometrics are things that you do with beginners with body weight early on in a training phase. If your athlete's a little more advanced or they're a little stronger, what you can do is you can have this with dumbbells. The dumbbell is a great way to start somebody out who is already advanced and progress them to the next phase of this, which would be the barbell, or somebody who had already gone through the body weight and they need to progress to the next phase, which would be this. The dumbbells are a great way to make that happen in a safe way where you don't have to worry about big balance issues as you can just put the dumbbells down. The next progression we're going to do is the second most advanced. And what we're going to do is we're going to come on over here to the barbell. So what's going to happen is Jordan's going to get under the bar and he's going to step back. And for right now, whenever the rule is, whenever you're doing a barbell split squat, you are in the general strength position, biomechanical position, because this needs to protect your knee. There's too much force on the spine that will transmit down into the knee and actually create injury if you have that knee over the toe. When you're doing a barbell lift, the first thing you need to do is truly shift your weight onto the leg that's going to stay up. After that, you place the other one back. And now as you can see, the balance is kind of an issue. What we're going to do is he's going to go down at a normal pace, or he's going to go down at whatever pace that you set as the coach. So a perfect rep would be going down all the way, coming up all the way. Perfect rep. Do one more. Coming down all the way, coming up all the way. Good. So the important things to understand when you're a coach is that this movement can be it has high risk. Just because you're having somebody stand on one leg with a bar on their back and you have to rely on their balance. So as a coach, it's important, if you could just get back up there, it's important that you are standing in the correct position to ensure the safety. How you spot this. Jordan's going to step back, he's going to get his foot up the way he needs to. I'm going to be right in this position where I am not in the way of him or the barbell. He's going to go down. And I'm right here. And what I'm ready for is that if he starts to fail, I can get right under him and help him up. Go ahead and rack. It's very important that you have somebody there, because when somebody is down in the bottom of this lift, and if they collapse, that is a very detrimental injury. It could have serious orthopedic or whatever issues coming on after that. So it's very important that it's understood that you know how to spot. If this is a near maximal lift, because this is a lift that you can max out depending on the phase, and that would come near a maximal strength, or power phase. If you're going to be doing near maximal work, 3 spotters. You have one guy where I am in this position, and you would have 2 others on the sides helping, because that is a very, very intense and dangerous lift. The biggest thing to note is that the general strength biomechanical technique must be used during this. The loads are too high and it's directly down the spine, and putting that force on the front of the knee could actually damage it, and that's something we do not want. Now, the last progression of this is the most, I would say, high velocity, high powerful, high skill that we're going to focus on next. What this is a Bulgarian split squat jump. So, we're going to move this stuff out of the way. We have a contact knife here just to regulate how high he is jumping. That is not a necessary thing. So what's going to happen is, first I'm going to have Jordan come on and demonstrate this doing the long form so we can see how it does not work. So what you're going to do is you're going to get in the general strength biomechanical technique. His foot's going to come back, so step out a little bit farther just for the purpose of this. Now as you can see, when he goes down, there is no way for him to transmit force in the ground efficiently. So come back up, and what I want you to do is try to jump quickly. So he goes down, he tries to jump from this position. Not a very good jump. What we're going to do now is he's actually going to put himself in the correct position where his foot is back and his knee is coming a little bit over his toe. This will allow for a more powerful jump coming up. So we're here, his foot is back. His knee is going to come over his toe, and what he's going to do is he's going to do a counter movement, and he's going to be able to put force down into the ground under his center of mass and drive his body up in the air. So go ahead and show us. Down, drive it up. That was a much better jump. And the reason that applies to the sport world is because whenever you're transmitting force into the ground, for the most part, obviously not all the time, but for the most part, your knee will come over your toe. This movement can be done with body weight, or it can be done with a load. That load can vary. We're not going to go a very heavy load, but we're trying to work on a high velocity movement right now. This would come in a power phase. So you're getting that sports specific biomechanical technique, and here you go. He's going to be able to jump and land, getting up as high as you can. Go ahead. So down, driving up through the ground. Good. Land. Go ahead and put those down. So the biggest thing with this is that your athlete needs to be at a point where they can handle force absorption. Even though I've all been talking about transmitting force in the ground, pushing through the ground, the concentric phase, it is extremely important that the athlete can absorb, because the landing on this requires a lot of skill. And that relates back to the movement we first did doing the tempos, that absorption, because as you can see, go ahead and do a jump. As you can see, as he jumps and comes to land, he is required to absorb all that force. If there is not enough eccentric strength there, injury can happen, or he'll just fall over. So it's extremely important that the progression is followed from the body weight tempos, dumbbell tempos, to the max strength over there on the barbell. Then you're coming full circle over here, where you can actually transmit the force that you have developed into the ground and then absorb it on the way down like we've worked on before. Other than that, that's the movement. Thank you for watching.